Welcome to the Sprinkle with Hope podcast and your host, Jason. We have an awesome guest with us today, Kate Hansen. She is an Olympian. She was in the 2014, right, Sochi Games as a luger. And that is really not what made her famous, and we'll talk a little bit about that, what came to be at that Olympic Games. But we're just so happy to have her join us and talk a little bit about some of the things that she learned as an Olympian and just what she's working on today. So thanks for joining us today, Kate.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
Awesome. So maybe if you could just fill in a little bit of the blanks, kind of what you're doing now, and which we're really excited to talk about. But what's Kate up to these days?
Yeah, so I went to the Olympics. What year is it? 2021. I went to the Olympics 7 years ago. And since then, I went back to college full-time, graduated, started with a tech company, and then I actually worked my way into holistic medicine. So I live in Venice in Los Angeles, and I work with clients and I work on feet. It's called foot zoning. And so I do that. And then I also personal train. And then I also work in the stock market, as we heard the noises from my computer earlier before. But yeah, so I'm a little spread. And I work for the Dodgers a little bit. I'd prefer a lot of different things than one main thing. I think focusing on the Olympics for so long has steered me very far away from big, tremendous goals. So yeah, that's what I do. So I kind of work in health.
I think Jason was referring to the Dodger part of that because we're huge Dodger fans.
Are you Dodger fans? Tell me more. How long have we been Dodger fans for?
For life. I was born in Glendale, so right down the street.
Yeah.
So really, it's in our blood.
I've worked for the Dodgers for about 6 years now, but it's really part-time, so I sometimes forget. It's like some weeks I'll have a lot of games and then I won't have a game for like a month. So I kind of forget that it's like in my routine, I guess. But yeah, so I work for them. They're super cool.
That's awesome. So I don't want to overlook the fact that you were an Olympian. I think that's a significant thing that a lot of people don't get the opportunity to do. So walk me through that. How, because you might say, well, yeah, I'm just like everybody else, but to be an Olympian takes something. And what is that something that sets you apart from me?
I have thought a lot about this the past 7 years. And I feel like when I went to the games, my narrative was, oh, this could have been anybody. Like, I was just in the right time at the right place. I was athletic enough and I just really went for it. So I got recruited when I was 10 years old, and they had like a clinic in Long Beach, and my dad was like, let's go check it out. And I grew up skateboarding and I liked all these sports. And so they have the same sled, but with wheels on them. And so they teach you how to go down a hill with cones and all these things. So I got into it very young, but I never was interested in being an Olympian. I just did it to get out of school and to just I just thought it just looked cool. I don't know. It was just yeah, why not? Let's do it. And then I got cut my first year. It was really hard. It's a very difficult sport. I like ball sports. I played soccer, basketball, softball. So
nice.
This sledding thing was not natural at all, especially coming from California. So I really just liked the challenge of it. And it was just interesting. The whole thing was just interesting. And then I got cut, I retried out, and then I just kind of wanted to see how far I could take it. And so I moved out of the house when I was 15, and I was living in Europe, and we were competing abroad. And then you kind of just wait for your moment every 4 years. And if you're peaking at the right time and the stars align and there's a God, then you will go to the Olympics. And so at the time I was always like, oh, anyone could have done this, because I didn't really feel that special. I didn't think that I was really that different. I also saw a lot of athletes get screwed over. I saw a lot of politics and unfairness within sports. So I felt this guilt that I got to go and do it. So but now I look back and I realize that most people strive for a balanced life. And when you are brought into a sport that young, you're out of balance already. So you don't know what balance is. So you're just striving for the carrot that's in front of you. So I think the difference between you and I is that my circumstances introduced me to something, and then I didn't really know any better. And so I just committed 110%. But I'm kind of glad I didn't know any better, because I don't think I would have had the gusto to last that long in the sport. So most people, I think the difference between Olympians and normal, more balanced people are in balance, and they have relationships, and they have an education, and they are making money, and they see their family. Whereas like Olympians have a little bit of neuroticism in them, where they won't stop until they get it. So I think both are beautiful. They're just different outcomes. So it just depends on, like, I don't know, depends on what each person's interested in. But I think if I could explain it clearly, I think that would be it.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that, I think oftentimes we set like, oh, that person must be like a special something, right? Or, anybody has that ability if we put our mind and our will to it, right? Like, it's just that drive to reach those goals or whatever that you're seeking after that makes the difference. And so, yeah, what are your kind of thoughts on that? And, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I feel like, you think about like the Usain Bolts, you're like, obviously you were just always incredible. Like,
right.
But I do feel, there's a lot of talent in a lot of places that just doesn't get seen. And also like injuries. Like there are so many. I've wanted to do a podcast actually with my sister about fourth place. Every person that's gotten in fourth place, because they're pretty much just as good as the medalists. It could just be that much time that changes everything. But we never hear about them. Like we never hear, like, do you guys watch Hamilton?
Yes.
I just saw Hamilton yesterday, so it's like on my mind. It's like Aaron Burr. We would have never known about Aaron Burr and how influential he was in our history, because he was never president. So we just like, he's not on our dollar bills and we don't hear about him, but yet so important. So there's so many athletes that like were just this close, and it just could have been the day. It could have been the weather. It could have been anything. So like, I do think there's definitely a baseline of talent that needs to be there. But then there's also like a lot of give and take on timing and health and injuries. And so I always am really sensitive, and I want to be really sensitive when I meet athletes, because I don't want to like put the Olympics on this pedestal, because it's cool. I'm so grateful I got to go, but it also is only 2 weeks of an 11-year career. And there's a lot of athletes where that brings a lot of pain, because normal society really like builds up the Olympics, because it's Tuesday night entertainment, once every 2 years. But like when it's your life, it's your livelihood, it's your paycheck, like it's your family, it's your community, like it's not just entertainment on a Tuesday night. So the difference of making the Olympics and not, like, changes people's lives forever. And so I know so many athletes that the Olympics didn't happen, but they worked just as hard, and they were. So anyways, it's a fine line of being sensitive to it, but then also like owning that, like, I'm proud of myself that I went and did it. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting line.
Yeah. Well, you should start that podcast.
I literally, there's one person, Dominic, he's one of my friends on the Italian team, and he missed bronze medal in Sochi by like 8,000ths of a second. Like that would have changed his life. Yeah. And like, he didn't sleep for years because of it. But like, we'll never know. We'll never know about him. And because of that, then he doesn't get the endorsements. He doesn't get all the money that was supposed to back pay for his training. Like, it's all wild.
Yeah.
It's all wild, the whole thing. So anyways.
So I'm guessing when you're at the Olympics, you really develop these really close relationships with a lot of the athletes. I'm not talking just about your country, but a lot of them. And I'm curious, do those relationships, do they last, or do you not have a lot of these that you don't see them or talk to them anymore once the Olympics were over? It's done.
So it's interesting. Like the Olympics is the one time where it's all the sports together. But every other year you're with your sport traveling the world. So you're like a big traveling circus almost. Like each week is a different village and a different track. So like the luge athletes from around the world are like family. So like this Dominic guy is, from Italy. I had trained with him for 7 years at that point. So like, so we all the like your sport, you're close with them because you know, you're with each other for the 3 other years. And so, but the Olympics is interesting because then you get access to these other sports because all the other sports have their own tours. So like, it was really cool for me because I remember in Sochi, it was the first year that like freestyle skiing and snowboarding and slopestyle and all of the X Games stuff, it was their first year. And so I got to meet all these people from X Games and Do Tour that I was like, oh my gosh, like this is cool. Like, and I get to go to your events and like get to see it. Whereas like I would have never been in Aspen. Like you never get to see other people compete because you are on your own.
Yeah.
So it's cool that you get access to like meeting everybody again. And like I have some relationships. Like one of my friends, Eddie Alvarez, just took silver in Tokyo and he was with me with speed skating in Sochi. So like you all follow each other on Instagram and you just kind of stay updated because it's such like a special time when you finally get to like celebrate your career before you have to go back to work. Like you fly home and you're back in the gym a week later. Like you don't. But yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely wasn't trying to downplay being an Olympian. That's an incredible thing.
I didn't think that at all.
No, you're good. It takes a lot of courage and different things to get to the Olympics, I'm sure. So do you mind talking about some of those failures along the way and kind of, how did you as an Olympian or even getting up to that point kind of overcome some of those? Because I think that's really important, not just for those that want to maybe try to become an athlete, but for the rest of us that are, just struggling in our day to day, there might be some correlation there that we can apply.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I just spoke about this topic to a company and I was talking to a bunch of sales guys. So they're like very driven door-to-door sales guys. And so I got to talk about this subject because I feel like it was a group of people that really understood failure and like understood the trench work of life. And so I had to boil it down to a few things. So for me, like, I mean, my whole career was failure. I mean, about like, I would say 90% of my career is failure. Like, and you just get really used to it. So they say fail fast. Like that's the best way to go. But like, it's not like I had backup plans. Like, it's not like I had like school. Oh, it's the thing is about real life is like, if you have a bad day at school, you get to go home to your family and you get to have like other great times. But like when you commit your whole life to something, if that one thing fails, everything kind of fails. And so the emotions that it plays on is very heavy and it's very deep. And it's like, like I remember I crashed all the time. I was really great at crashing. Like I crashed more than truly, I think, yeah. I crashed all the time. I didn't have neck muscles, and so I couldn't hold my head up. So it would sometimes drag on the ice, which means then you're doing it blind. And like as a child, that's like terrifying. It's also a sign of like, what are you doing here? Like you don't belong here. And I don't know. I just kept showing up. Like it was all the signs in the world to quit, but I don't know. I think I just enjoyed it. And I just liked the people I was with. And I was like, I'll just do this till you cut me. And then I just kind of had some success that like propelled me into a different universe of competing. But I feel like at a young age, I don't know, I just didn't really question it. I think kids are so present that they don't really take things personal. And it wasn't until I got older when I really started to mess with me emotionally. And by that time, I'm 5 years into the sport, like people are supporting my journey, my hometown. Like you feel this like weight that people care. In reality, they don't totally care, but like in your mind, you think they really care. So when you have a bad race, you think that like everybody's watching and everyone, but really it's only my parents who are watching. So it just, but like it really like what hurt me. And I think like what kept me going was, well, I was in Europe, so I couldn't really go anywhere. I was in Germany in the middle of nowhere. And so your circumstances just kind of keep you there. And I think it was like, I just knew that if I stopped after these small failures, I would always wonder what could have been. So like, I don't necessarily have like a piece of advice of like, get out of bed every day. It's more of just like, I just knew intrinsically, like I had fear of regret over fear of failure. So I think that's important, is to realize like, what are your intentions with what you're doing? Like, you should never have to force yourself to do anything, like, because then it just wasn't the right thing to do in the first place. So like, but if you feel in your gut that what you're doing is the right thing, what I was telling these sales guys is that there's an extra level like for everybody, but we don't know it's there, because the things that cause us to go into this overdrive of focus and like this extra level is a lot of pain. Like we have to feel a lot of pain before we kick into this extra gear. Otherwise, you have no catalyst or reason to kick into this gear. And so for me, I just realized like, oh my gosh, I can be working so much harder. And like, yeah, I'm working out a couple times. I mean, you're at summer camp. Like we fly out to Lake Placid, New York. We're living in the Olympic Training Center. You're already on like, diets. You're already working out 3 to 4 times a day. Like you're already on it. And so then when you're doing that and you're still failing, like you're the problem. Like no one's the problem, but you're the problem. So then you got to go back and be like, hey, like, what can I be doing better? And you're like, okay, stop eating sugar, or I should go run an extra 2 miles every day, or I should do an extra set. Like, so I think like extreme ownership, kind of like Jocko Willink, the guy, what he talks about, like no one else is the problem but yourself. And so it just matters like how much do you care? And if you care enough, you will rise and you will find this level of focus and hard work that you've never understood before. So like when I retired and I started working at my first job, I realized how lazy people are. Like I was just like, and it's not like I was this like extra person. I just was like, your boss asked you to do something, just do it. Like, just get it done. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But like, but I just realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, people, like life just kind of goes and people just kind of coast, and there's not enough pain for them to level up. Whereas I feel like by the time I'd been to that point, I'd broken my back, I'd broken my foot. I thought I was going to quit like 8 times. Like I felt like I'd been to like my personal hell and back. So when I got to real life, I was like, oh, you'll pay me to do this? Like you'll pay me to cold call people? Like this is great. Like my boss was like, sales is like banging your head against the wall every day. And I was like, I did that for 11 years and I didn't really make anything. So this is great. You'll pay me to do this? Great. So I don't know. I guess it's just different. Depends how you look at it.
So you mentioned a lot of the things that you're doing now, the stock market, all these things. I want to ask, what do you do? I know, but for our listeners, what do you do for the Dodgers?
So I do their in-stadium broadcasting. So like I did it when I went to college at BYU too. So it's like the halftime shows. It's like presented by Ford. So it's like, it's just a fun gig. So it's just on the big screen.
And just between the 3 of us, you can get us in, right?
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
So what's the one thing that you would say that you're looking forward to the most that you're working on right now?
Oh, that's a good question. So with what I do in holistic medicine, I work a lot with I work on a lot of sick people. So I have clients that have cancer, stroke, lymphedema, infertility, a lot of like heavy issues. And so I am really looking forward to like the pursuit of knowledge. Like I feel like I'm being introduced to so many problems that like these people don't have like they've tried the medications, they've tried the hospitals, they've tried the doctors, and they just don't know. And then they're coming to me and I'm like, this is a little heavy. So I really look forward to like each new case that I'm getting, because I'm learning so much. And like everybody deals with health issues. Like we all have a relationship with health. And so I'm finding it like infiltrating my life and how I'm like talking to people, and it always comes up when I talk to people. And so I think just like keep pursuing that and like building my brain bank. And then yeah, life has been really good to me. So I feel like I'm just in this nice equilibrium, and I don't want to mess it up. So there's not really anything. Maybe my next camping trip. I mean, that's what I'm looking forward to. But like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, like I feel like I really hit a nice stride of just like gratitude, and like the Olympics really puts everything into perspective for me of like, oh, I don't have a coach anymore. I don't have someone telling me what to do. I get to do what I want to do. And like, I don't have to go to Russia anymore and be in, like, I get to be where I want to be, and I get to make those choices. And so I just look forward to that, just like having choice.
That's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about what kind of brought you to the forefront in Sochi, which, you know, from some of the things that I've heard, you know, your interviews and whatnot, you didn't even know, because you were there, right, in Russia, so you didn't know what was going on back here in the States. But it was your pre-warm-up routine that kind of made a name for Kate. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's so funny that like this is what I mean, I like love
right
about myself, so like it's super cool, but it's so funny to me. I'm like, I trained 11 years of my life, like I sacrificed so much of my life, and like that's what it came down to, was this pre-warm-up thing. Like that's just so funny to me, and also so beautiful, because I'd much rather have people remember that than how I finished at the Olympics. So it's great. But yeah, so I broke my foot a couple days before Olympic trials, and so I wasn't able to like warm up. I thought my season was over. I thought I just should trained half my life just to not even get a chance. But luckily for luge, we don't really need our feet, and we just lay there and we use our arms. So we're not like sprinting. So it's obviously not optimal to have a broken foot, but you can still do the job if you can handle it. And so I couldn't give up at that point. I waited so long for the Sochi Olympics. So anyways, I was on crutches and I couldn't really run and warm up properly, but I really love to dance. I've always loved dancing. I'm never taken a dance class. Like I'm not a dancer, but I love to dance. And so I learned, I could like pop and lock in place, and I could like, I don't know. So that helped me get my heart rate up. And then it also made me really happy. And I started racing really well. And I was like, wow, like this is really changing my races. Like I'm so happy. And happiness was never associated with racing for me. It was always anxiety and stress. And so to feel joy, I was like, oh wow, this is like changing everything. And so I just kept my routine, and going into the Olympics, like you don't want to change anything. Like you want to stay very consistent, like down to what you wear. Like I wear the same shoes on every race day. I wear the same clothes, like especially with luge, like it's not like a football game where you get full 4 quarters to think about what you're doing. It's like we get 1 minute, and it's just, you're not thinking, it's just like muscle reaction. And so some people are really superstitious. So I just I keep my routine the same. And so when I came to the Olympics, and I was like kind of embarrassed to dance because I don't know. I guess I just like to dance by myself. Like I don't really like, it's not like I like love when people stare. Like I get embarrassed. If it's my close friends, I love it. I'll dance all day.
Yeah.
But if it's strangers staring at me, I like stop dancing. I get awkward. So anyways, the Olympics, and there's cameras everywhere, and I just like, I'm just gonna go dance in the corner. And then I felt more comfortable, and then I was like, this is my moment. Like this is like, I was listening to Beyonce, and she's my girl, and I was just like feeling it. And then the cameras were there, and I got all this stuff, and I just was like, I don't know, I was so lost in the joy of like dancing to myself that I didn't really realize like what it meant to people, or like where it went. I still don't really think about this time very often. Like, so
Yeah.
I don't even, I still like my boyfriend. I don't think I've ever really talked about this with my boyfriend. We've been dating almost a year. Like, it just like, so when it gets brought up, I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. Like, I don't think I'll really get it until like I have kids maybe.
Sure.
I'm just like, yeah, that was cool. It was fun. But
That's awesome. You were being yourself, and that's what I think a lot of people grabbed onto.
yeah.
Was just you being you and enjoying the moment, not giving a care as what else
Yeah.
is going on.
Yeah.
So right at the end of our podcast, we always like to do what we call the double down dose. And so it's 2 questions.
Okay.
I'll ask one, and then Shane will have a follow-up to that. And our podcast is sprinkled with hope. And so we like to talk about hope. And so what is your definition of hope, or how would you define hope?
Ooh, also a great question. Hope. I mean, being raised religiously, I think it holds a connotation, right? But like, I feel that it holds different meaning to me now. I think hope is obviously like the belief in good. Like, I hope for something, or I have hope for it. But I think hope to me now is a high frequency of energy, like having a high vibration within myself. Something I really try and focus on is like, what is my, not like what's my vibe, but like when you operate at a high frequency, you attract high frequency things, and when you talk about it, you attract things. So I'm really into attraction, and like attracting things into my life instead of me going and searching for them. Like, they're going to come to me because I'm going to live my life in a way to be like that. So hope for me is like a high vibration thing, and like to be thinking, to look at things with positivity, and to like, you ever see that you ever heard about the experiment with like kids, and they have 2 plants, and if you think bad thoughts and you think good thoughts, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I think that's what I think. So when I like see things, I just am like trying to send like positive vibrational things. Like, and it's interesting living in Venice. There's a really big homeless population, and there's literally like 3 surrounding our house. We're all friends. It's great. It's not a big deal. It's not like Skid Row. I mean, yeah, you get it in Glendale. It's not like Skid Row homeless. It's like they literally are just like camping in the streets. So they're great. They're super kind and everything. But it's so easy to judge and to like see the trash around their homestead, I guess, and like assume why they're there. And like, I just am realizing like the more I talk to them and meet them, it's like they are people too, and they're just cohabitating on the same block as you. So like, just like send love. Like, we're just sending love, and that's all that matters. They don't bother you, don't bother them. Like, they're great. They're people too. So like, I think hope to me is, yeah, just like emitting and radiating positivity. So that's what I think that's what it is for me.
I love that. We talk a lot about the energy that we put out comes back to us. It's not karma. I don't believe in karma. I just believe in just that positive energy that you put out is going to come back in good ways. So also something that you said will lead into the second part of Double Down Dose, which is, and this one tends to stump people. They really haven't thought a lot about it, but how would you define love?
Love. That's also a great question. I think it means different things for everybody. I think for me, love is unconditional. I read a book called Real Love by Greg, I forget, but it's the idea of like how to embody unconditional love. So like how to actually like give something and not expect anything back. So for instance, like my mom's really into thank you notes, and like she'll give a present, but if she doesn't get a thank you note back, it kind of like, it's like, why don't you send me a thank you note? Like my grandma's the same way. But it's like, well, don't send it if you expect a thank you note back. But I also think that's a very courteous thing for that generation. Whereas like, I don't ever want to give something hoping or expecting that they're going to like send me something back. So like love to me is texting the friend that never texts you back. And it's literally a one-sided conversation and just saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Like, and truly not being bugged. That's love. Or love is when someone lives differently. Like, for example, like within church, like someone consuming it differently than me and genuinely being supportive of it. And genuinely being like, I love that for you. That's incredible. Like, you're incredible. You're a queen. Like, you're the best. Instead of me being like, that's weird, or why'd she do that? So I think love for me is not only an unconditional like execution of a habit, but it's unconditional inside too. And I think if you're not, then there's friction, and then you're not cohesive, and then it's not good. So yeah, I think love of all. I have a few friends that I just text all the time, but I love texting them. I don't hear from them, but I love it.
Yeah.
I guess that would be love for me.
Very good. It's been great to pick your brain and get to know some of the thoughts that you've shared with us. I truly appreciate this time, Kate. I've loved watching your career, and hope to see you at Dodger Stadium.
Totally. Come on by.
Yeah, for sure. So is there any kind of last parting words, Kate, that you'd just like to leave with everybody before we close out here?
What kind of parting words? I mean, there's so much to say.
Oh, I know.
What do other people say for parting words? Do they have like a little tagline or something? Or?
Yeah, some, or just anything that's kind of coming to your mind right now that you know that you're thinking about a lot lately, or just something that, you know, how do we get a hold of you? How do we support Kate? How do we just anything?
I mean, if anyone's gonna come to LA, give me a call. Find me on Instagram.
Awesome.
Cater Tots. I made it as a joke, and now it's stuck, so it's still Cater Tots. But yeah, I think if there's okay, this is what I'll say. One thing, if I'm gonna take one thing from my Olympic experience, besides like hard work, don't give up, all the things we see in the movies, the one thing that has stuck with me ever since is that life will never be enough if you don't think you're enough. So like people will spend their life chasing the things, like just chasing the job title, chasing the salary, chasing the body, chasing the travel or the experiences, but none of it will be fulfilling if you yourself are not fulfilled with yourself. And so I now steer so far away from I think I mentioned this, big lofty goals. Like they give me anxiety, they give me PTSD, because I don't feel that I should feel the need for another big goal like that, because I'm content in myself. And so I see that in a lot of people, especially around my age. I'm almost 30, and people are in the throes of getting the job and trying to make everything. And I feel like as someone who feels like they did it for their own, I've already lived that life. It's just no one will ever be satisfied. So just do what you want to do. Just pick what brings you happiness and joy, and just stick to that. And who cares what everyone else is doing, because they'll figure this out maybe by the time they're like 60, because that's what happens. Everyone grows, they build their wealth, and then they get old and they have grandkids, and like, oh, I just like want to be healthy and happy. So you can just figure it out now, and you could just choose healthy and happy for the rest of your life instead of selling your soul to a boss or a relationship or anyways. So I think that's my one big takeaway from the Sochi Olympics.
See, I love it. That's exactly what you needed to end with.
Perfect. It was perfect.
It was spot on. Thank you so much, Kate, for coming on and joining us, and just your awesome words. And I feel inspired for sure. So thank you so much.
Cool. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.